If you are a university student or you're considering applying to a university in the future, you have most likely at some point also thought about taking up a job on the side. So while I generally do encourage everyone to accumulate work experience while at school, working while studying can also pose a lot of issues unless you're prepared for them. So in this video, I will share a few reasons coming from my own personal experience why you should not necessarily work while doing your university studies, or at least not at first. Alright, so why should you avoid working while doing your university degree? Well, first, let's get the most important reason out of the way, which is that working while studying will increase the risk of a potential burnout. So the thing is that in Finland, studying a university degree full-time, at least on paper, means between 7 to 10 hours of work per day. So this math is actually based on a normative pace where you do 60 ECTS credits per academic year, meaning 12 credits per teaching period, each of which are 6 weeks long. It's important to understand that in Finland, 1 credit corresponds to around 27 hours of work. So if you do 12 credits per 6 weeks, each credit corresponding to 27 hours, that means 324 hours of work that you should do during each period, again, which are 6 weeks long. So if we divide that 324 hours by 42 days, which is 6 weeks times 7, and yes, I'm also counting weekends because on average, most students also study during the weekends, you will get a pace of 7.7 hours per day of studying. However, if you don't want to study during the weekends, then you should add around 3 hours per day to each workday to balance the hours. This means that if you study only during the weekdays, that is going to correspond to a 10.8-hour workday on average. Anyways, regardless of the model, that's a really long workday to put in just for school. Of course, at this point, I also have to put in a disclaimer here. This pace doesn't necessarily always hold true, and it will depend on your study habits, methods, and abilities, as well as your particular school, the difficulty of the courses that you take, etc. However, these are the numbers that are normally used for benchmarks, so it's just a good place to start from. So if we accept either of these models, studying full-time will leave you either with just part of the evenings or the evenings and part of the weekends for you to work. Either of these scenarios will leave you with a very limited amount of time to rewind and to basically reset your brain after each day. So this is actually the key here because you need to get rest, not just meaning sleep, but also some free time during which you get to rewind in order to keep yourself not only sane, but also productive in the long term. Of course, taking into account here that we are all individuals and whether or not you are capable of working while studying and still be able to keep up with school with good grades is totally up to you. So I'm not saying that you can or cannot work while studying, but what I am saying here is that university studies in Finland will take a lot of time and you need to take this into account. Also, an important note here, in addition to the actual hours that we just calculated that you have to put into your classes, assignments, and for example, exam prep, there are other aspects that you also have to take into account when it comes to the actual workload that you will have to put in. So not only is university most likely different in Finland compared to your country, but considering that as an international student here, you will have to move into a completely different country to study your degree, meaning that you will most likely have at least some kind of a culture shock at some point. Culture shocks come in different sizes and forms, but what I can say here is that it is generally easier to get over them if you have more free time to process your new life in the new country, in this case being Finland. So this is why I would recommend that you start your studies without any kind of a work so that you can, just get used to the Finnish university life and to your new life in Finland in general. So if you're not quite sure whether you can actually balance the workloads between work and school, what I would personally recommend is that you take it quite slow in the beginning and get at least a few exams out of the way to get a feel of how much work does your school actually take and how is your daily schedule like. So if you actually want a concrete, real recommendation, I would actually tell you not to work during the first semester. The reason here is that this will give you plenty of time to orient yourself to your new daily life in Finland. If you want to start working after the first semester, my recommendation is that you should start looking for a job around November, December of that first semester, taking into account that it will most likely take a few months for you to find and sign your first jobs. So yeah, just take it easy in the beginning and make sure that you first get used to living and studying in Finland before adding on the extra pressure of having a job on the side. Actually, talking about starting your studies in Finland, this is a great segue to talk about today's sponsor, which is Aalto University. So Aalto University is the #1 ranking university in Finland in the fields of technology, business, and arts and design, and it also ranks 3rd in Europe and 9th in the entire world in the QS Top 50 Under 50 rankings. I've personally done both my bachelor's and master's degrees at Aalto, and I really recommend that you consider applying there in the next application period. They have a large amount of super interesting degrees taught in English, and while talking about jobs, it is also noteworthy that Aalto University graduates have some of the best employment numbers out of all university graduates in Finland. So if you want to take future career prospects into account when choosing your university, Aalto is definitely a great option to check out. More information about the different degree programs and how to apply to Aalto University can be found through the links in the description box below. Alright, so the next reason not to work while studying is that it can, and often does, slow down your studies. So again, this comes from personal experience, which taught me that no matter how well you try to balance your work and studies, it seems that working tends to get in the way of your studies a way or another. So the most obvious reason for this is that you have a limited amount of hours per week to be used, and even a part-time job can take a lot of time. So this means that you might simply not have the time to either work as much you want, or in case where your job contract is not flexible enough, you will not have the time to do your schoolwork and study for exams. In addition, another way work can mess with your studies, and this actually happened to me, is the temptation of working more because of all the perks that comes with it. So it's not just the salary, but also the different career opportunities that come along with, working and getting better positions along the way. So what happened to me was that I took a part-time job while starting my master's studies, and I did that job for a while, as part-time alongside my courses. But once I noticed that I was rather good at that job, and once I was offered a new and a better position in the company, this led to a situation where I started working more and more every month. And this basically led to a situation where I was working full-time and studying part-time, while the original idea was to do the other way around. So yeah, just be aware that once you actually get into the career mode, it's very tempting to work more and more, and that might damage your studies because simply, again, you don't have enough hours in the week. Alright, so the next reason not to work while studying, or at least not to work all throughout your studies, is that if you do, you will most likely miss out on a lot of really awesome student activities and great student experiences. So doing your 3 to 5-ish years of university studies in Finland is not only an opportunity for you to get your degree, but it's also regarded by many as some of the best time of your life. So as a general rule, university studies are just a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of cool people, of course, and to build your networks, but you also get to accumulate a lot of really fun experiences that you will not be able to do otherwise, and that you will think back on when you're all grown up. So this is true especially in Finland, where the student experience is a super important part of your studies. In Finland, we don't just go to university to study, but to also to experience the university culture through different communities and activities. So for example, many student organizations in Finland have their roots back in the early 1900s, actually even before Finland became an independent nation. This in turn means that many student communities have over 100 years of culture and traditions behind them, and there are so many cool things to learn and awesome experiences to have while doing your studies at a Finnish university. However, the thing is that if you spend most of your time either in class or at work, you will most likely miss a lot of really interesting and unique experiences that you will not get to go through afterwards. So if you want to get the most out of your student experience in Finland, I recommend that you reserve at least some time to either volunteer or some other way to participate in some of the cultural aspects of Finnish student life. Next, I recommend that you watch this video where I explain the most important reasons why you should work while doing your university studies. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.